Good evening, everyone. So it's a big pleasure to welcome Tim Sutton, one of the most exciting and acclaimed filmmakers from New York City. Hi, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Michael. Thanks for reconnecting.
Yeah, it's very nice to having you here. I give yourself a very nice applause. So we have to do that.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Perfect.
It's very nice to have you here tonight, and we will talk about your films. You know, all the great 5 films that you made in the, let's say, past 8 years. So let's first start to talk about how you're feeling these days. How is your state of mind as a filmmaker in these really crazy times that we're facing?
It is. It's a absolutely baffling time as a filmmaker. Because not only is it just hard as a human being, like all of us are experiencing, not being able to have our lives the way they used to be, and being cooped up. But as a filmmaker, it's such an unclear time, and you know this as a theater owner and also as a curator, what films and what theaters and what production companies, what distribution companies, who's going to survive, and what will that then look like? And so the question that I ask myself a lot is there a place for art cinema still on the other side? And it keeps me up at night, for sure. I mean, I at times can feel very down about it, and I talk to, I have plenty of peers, mutual friends that we have actually too, that what they're trying to do and what they think. So there's a community that's still there, and it's actually as strong as ever digitally.
Right.
But as far as the work that's going to come from this, I wonder and I worry, and I wonder about my place in this, but I wonder about the bigger picture of the type of movie that I love, the type of cinema that I love, and that I've just, that has changed my life and filled my life. Will that exist in the streaming era?
Right. So I think it's a good point, to start with your first film. Back in 2012, that was the moment when we guys met, when we both of us when we met. And it was at the Munich Film Festival when I watched Pavilion, which is your first debut feature. I think we should start with showing the trailer.
Okay.
And then we start talking about it. So now I will present you guys the trailer of Pavilion, one of my really most favorite coming-of-age films. That's how I call it. It's very nice.
You know what really hurts? When your leg gets caught in the back of your tire on doing a can-can.
Oh, I know.
Because I went from this, I said, do, and I said, and my leg got caught.
That's what I'm gonna do tomorrow. Double can?
You have to go really high.
Still at the first invitation, a moment unsure, a fortnight to rest all the sea. You're telling me, stand on that, the bridge wasn't empty. Stand on that, the bridge wasn't full. Stand on that, the keys are forgotten. Finally, if follow me, it has to give reason. At the first invitation, a moment unsure, a fortnight to rest all the sea. You're telling me, stand on that, the bridge wasn't empty. Stand on that, the bridge wasn't full. Stand on that, the keys are forgotten. Finally, if follow me, it has to give reason. Eventually, I found it won't stay. If follow me, I keep on believing. Stall me. Fall down.
So, before you will tell me about this film and how that film came up to your mind and how it started to grow, I just want to let you know that, you know, the moment after I watched that film at that Munich Film Festival in 2012, I think I wasn't really there. It really blew my mind, because it brought me back all these memories, you know, about my youth, about that feeling, living each moment in a summer. And I bought the soundtrack on iTunes instantly afterward.
Nice.
It's amazing, you know. It's really nice. And but now, tell me more about it. You know, how did that film come up? Yeah.
Sure. Well, when I knew I was gonna, my first film was gonna be about youth. You know, I figured, as a subject matter, I thought it was a good place to start. And, you know, as a big fan of the 400 Blows and films like that, I thought it was appropriate to kind of make a statement like that. In my hometown where I grew up, a kid I used to know, who I babysat for, actually, disappeared one night in the summer, and he was never found again. And that kind of loss, you know, tore the town apart. But what was most interesting to me about it, other than, you know, I was so sad for the kid's family and for their loss, but his friends didn't know what to do with themselves. Right. So what do you do when it's summer and you're a teenager, 14, 15-year-old kid? They just kind of went on with their lives, and it struck me as something really beautiful. They didn't do anything differently than I would have done, 10 years before, or what kids are doing this summer, or not this summer, but maybe last summer. Yeah. But the idea of this kind of just going, days flow into nights, time flows, it inverts and goes to infinity, and I thought that would be a really interesting movie to me, not telling the story about the missing kid, right, but telling the story about how kids exist in a landscape when there's nothing pressing to do. Like, you and I have lives and things to do and things we have to accomplish day in and day out. What's beautiful about them is maybe they have to say that the one thing they're going to do is they're going to go to the lake, or they're just going to get on their bike. And what comes is what interested me, and that's what I wanted to make a movie about.
Yeah. I think that concept worked pretty well, and the film had its premiere at the South by Southwest Film Festival in Austin, and afterward it went through so many festivals, great festivals. That was the place where we met, actually, then in Munich, when you stopped there.
My first international film festival.
Right, that was your first international film festival at that time. And how did you finance your first feature film?
Well, it was very cheap, but what I did, I had two friends who had gotten pretty successful in finance, and so I got a little money from them. I put in a little of my own money, and then enough that I was able to produce the film and get it into post-production. And then I did Kickstarter was brand new,
right? And
a person in my film lab that I was in, the independent film project, was the head of film at this thing called Kickstarter, right. And she was like, "I can help you with the campaign," and we were all like, "All right, whatever this is." I raised $45,000 on Kickstarter, yeah, so wow. I was able to pay for the rest of editing and for the festival travel and for posters and all of that. So it was a mix of like the old-fashioned way and then this new thing that really helped independent film for quite a while.
Really nice, yeah. I mean, you guys, you can watch definitely. You should definitely check out the film Pavilion. You can watch it on video on demand. We will post all the links for all of Tim's films, and you can purchase them for a few bucks and check out what this guy thinks about different matters and issues or whatever. And I think then after Pavilion, after you traveled so many festivals, the journey continued, and a film came up called Memphis. How did that come up?
Well, Memphis, when I was at the Torino Film Festival in Italy, and it was one of the few film festivals that Pavilion actually won a prize in.
Right.
And I was I was after the awards ceremony, I was introduced to the head of the Venice Film Festival, Alberto Barbera.
Yeah.
And it's always great to meet the head of a film festival when you're holding a trophy from another festival.
Right. Yeah.
And he said, "Well, we have this new program called the Venice Biennale, and we're funding independent films. This is the first year. You should apply." And so I absolutely doubled down. And I'd always been interested in African American music and roots music, blues music in America, and how, there's Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles and Otis Redding, but there's thousands of these other these other singers with voices that are so sublime, but they end up dying in unmarked graves or going unknown or becoming addicted to drugs or whatever and not making it. So I was really interested in telling the story of a singer in a spiritual way who was no longer interested in the marketplace, who was interested in developing his own voice. And at the same time, it was a story about me, even though it's completely about Memphis and about this African American singer. It's very much about me as a filmmaker. Is that I think people wanted me to make a step towards the mainstream and a step towards something that would be more acceptable. And what I wanted to do was find my own voice. And so that's why Memphis was such a kind of interesting process, because it was kind of finding my own world within this very specific world of black music in Memphis.
Yeah. All your films are quite brave, and I like this bravery in filmmaking, and I think it's important if art really has a point to exist, and so I will show you guys the trailer of Memphis, and then we talk again to Tim about his other projects.
I look at the trees. Sometimes I wish I was a tree. You ever wish you were a tree?
Willis,
What?
we need a record.
We need to be trees.
It's a price, man. You have to pay a price to have the talent that you got. I'd hate to be in your shoes where you owe God, because you're going to have to pay that debt.
You believe in magic?
Come on back with me, man. Get yourself together.
You find glory alone by yourself with nobody around. Nobody can hear you. That's where the glory is found.
You never know how life goes. It can be beautiful. It can be sad. You gonna have ups and downs. Either way it goes.
So Memphis, tell us more about Memphis. I also feel like a tree in my head.
Well, I mean, I wanted to make a movie about spirituality and creativity and about this kind of this mystical character who has the voice of God but wants to be a tree instead. Wants to kind of be one with nature. And at the same time, my producer John Baker introduced me to Willis Earl Beale, who read this short story. I didn't write a script. I wrote a short story, and he read the story and said, "This is the story of my life." And then, without knowing each other, we became like kind of cosmic brothers in a way, which sounds weird, but with Memphis, it definitely is true. And then we kind of put the short story away, and built the film as we went. I had a very, very big kind of arc that I wanted to happen, but day by day, the film would build on itself. So I always said that if one day Willis wakes up and he disappears to New Orleans, we either have to go to New Orleans and get him, or we're going to make the movie about the kids, or about his girlfriend, or about, you know, other people in Memphis. That we were going to flow like the kind of liquid. And that's what I think of the film as, really kind of liquid filmmaking. It has a direction and it has a current, but where it goes is kind of up for grabs.
Right. I think you guys should definitely check it out. Memphis is definitely a film that, I have it in my mind until today. You know, it's just because it's, I don't know. I'm never a guy who's looking for perfection. You know, when it comes to movie making, I think beauty means that imperfection can be affection. Can be perfection. You know, and like this Japanese saying, this wabi sabi. You know, perfection is in the imperfection. And to me, Memphis feels like a film, when I look at your filmography, that, you know, that guided you the path, or your way, where it all should go on, or how it should proceed, and could continue. Because after Memphis, you turned to a totally different subject.
Mm-hmm.
You came to a film called Dark Knight, and you picked up the surroundings of an event that actually happened, a tragic event, a dramatic event, with the subject of mass shooting.
Right.
Maybe you can tell us more about it.
Well, I felt like it was an interesting time to take the approach that I was going for, working with non-actors, kind of building stories as they go, very simple stories, but very complex landscapes, and apply that to a social issue. And I thought, when the Aurora shooting happened, it was just such a horrible tragedy on so many levels. But it also, it was, in a way, this death of the cinema, death in the cinema, and that, of course, is something that affected me greatly. And I thought it would be really interesting to not talk about the aftermath, not to talk about the politics involved, or the kind of the horror involved, as much as it is talking about how these people lived their lives,
right,
for the entire day up until the event, and how we're all so close to, we're so isolated, and we're so in this kind of state of malaise that, in a way, any of us could be the shooter. Is kind of how I put it. So it has more rules than Memphis and Pavilion, but at the same time, it has a very languid and kind of observational approach that are like the other two films.
Right, definitely. That's it. Let's check out the trailer. I will show you guys a trailer of Dark Knight. And I watched the film at the Cannes Film Festival at the Market.
Oh, yeah.
Market screening, and after that, when I left the screening, there were some buyers, and we were all standing there and talking about it, and no one really could figure out what he or she had seen. You know, it was everybody came to the point that this was a cinematic experience. And so, yeah, as I said before, you know, we will put all the links to all the video on demand files, and you can check out Dark Knight as well. So now we will show the trailer, and then we can come back to you, Tim.
Okay.
Just another dreamer, waiting for another dreamer. Just another lover, looking for another lover in life. skies are gray, but you'll never know, dear, how much I love you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
My sunshine away.
So this was the trailer of Dark Knight. I mean, that film also led you to the Sundance Film Festival, I think.
Memphis played Sundance in Venice, and Dark Knight played Sundance in Venice as well. And both festivals, Sundance especially, did a really great job with Dark Knight. It was a very intense time. While we were making Dark Knight, multiple mass shootings happened while we were in the shooting process, in the editing process. And since Dark Knight has played, there has been over 100 and some odd mass shootings in America alone. And I thought it was really important for the film to be, for this film to come out and be made, rather than something sensational or rather than something that glorifies one side or the other, that it was just a kind of very observational, very daydreamy look into a corner of the American, the American culture and the American psyche. The saddest thing about Dark Knight, which I my best movie as far as the technical meeting the creative, meeting the ideas, meeting the production, is that no distributor would take it.
Right.
And that it was an award-winning film that played the two of the top 4 festivals in the world, getting great reviews, right. But no distributor would take it because they were afraid of copycats. They didn't want to be a part of the conversation. Whereas the whole point of making this movie was to have an alternative voice in the the conversation about gun control, instead of CNN or instead of Fox News or instead of the newspapers, instead of the activists, to have art be a part of it. And it's the most disappointing thing in my career is to know that film could have really reached a larger audience for the right reasons and did not.
Yeah. There's a lack of appreciation of real bravery in filmmaking, Yeah. I mean, after that particular screening in Cannes, when I watched that film, at the market afterwards, there was one distributor. He said, I think it would be great to get this film out, but I'm afraid that someone could come to the cinema and shoot it. I mean, I think that's the wrong approach, when you start doing this. I mean, of course, they have to make a living. I mean, doing distribution, especially now as an independent distributor, it's really, really tough. But I think my dream of a distribution world would be that a major company would have a department that takes risks.
Right. Like, this would be a movie that in another day and age, I mean, a guy like Harvey Weinstein should have gotten behind. I mean, not him now, but and Neon was just starting up. Great. I love Tom Quinn and I love Neon, but and Tom Quinn said it was one of his favorite movies of the year. And there are scenes in it that are indelible for him. He loved it, but he wouldn't buy it. He wouldn't distribute it. And it was the first time, not the first time, but the really like the kind of the biggest realization that people in the industry might respect you as a filmmaker, but they don't want to they don't want to collaborate with you because your vision is too far off to the side, that it's alternative or that it's dangerous, or you call it brave. I just call it trying to be meaningful rather than trying to just communicate the same stuff that 30 other people like me are doing. And it's only gotten worse since then. As far as an American filmmaker, it's like there's a certain request, and it's good to go into Donny Brooke from this, because there's a certain expectation, and there's a certain, as a filmmaker, you want to reach an audience, you want distribution, but to get that distribution, you do have to make compromises. And I think in the films that I care about, like the great European films and Japanese and Asian films of the 60s, 70s, 80s, it didn't seem like there was as much compromise as there is now.
Right. I think there's a necessity to make compromises in every detail that you start with as a filmmaker, you know, when you start your project. But I think we have a technical issue. I will stay in line and try to get you back. Maybe Mr. Trump doesn't like what we talk about. I bring you back, my friend. Here we are. Here we are. I think. Wait. Trying to bring you back. Now you're back.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Good.
Very good. So there was just a technical issue, and I was kidding. I said maybe Mr. Trump doesn't like to talk about subjects like that. I'm listening to it.
Funny.
Because I think, to come back to your point, what you just said was, I think you have the balls to bring out meaningful topics, you know, meaningful subjects, and to collect money to make them happen. Because when I talk to filmmakers, I don't want to generalize, but when I talk to filmmakers from different ages, they just tell me that nowadays you have to try to survive, you have to make a lot of compromises, and so I fear that they are about to lose their voices. You know, maybe of course they have to survive. I mean, it's capitalism. You have to make enough money to survive. But when it comes to art, then it becomes a very thin line.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's true, because I think if you're not working in genre, in a specific genre in the cinema today, you don't have an audience. You might get a festival audience, but you won't get it if it's good. But you won't get a distribution deal. If you're like the Safdie brothers, who live in genre and of course are really excellent at what they do, it's a good mix, because they're able to make cool movies and their vision, but it's in the crime genre. And if you're not built in that way, and if you're not built in that kind of direction, right, it's very difficult, because you said you walk out of the screening of Dark Knight in Cannes and people don't know what to think. That is exciting to me. Right. But from a buyer's perspective, they want to know what to think. They want to know, like, I know exactly what audience this is working for, and that's, you know, that's the reason why I made Donny Brooke in the first place, which I don't think was as successful as I hoped it would. But I tried to figure out, all right, work with a bigger canvas, work in a genre, work with actors, but try and apply the same, you know, my aesthetic and my view of the world on it, and see if there's a match somewhere in there. Where the debate continues, really, because I feel like Donny Brooke is an exciting movie in a lot of ways. I grew a lot and enjoyed it, but to me it is filled with compromise, and it is, as an exploration. You know, it isn't as pure as the first three.
Yeah, and that was the film when you got Jamie Bell, which is well-known actor, as a lead character for that film. Right. And yeah, surprisingly, that film was bought by a German distribution company called Koch Films. They didn't want to go for a theatrical release. They only put it out digital and physical. But let's check out the trailer and then we talk about it. It's a very exciting project.
World's changed. Criminals running everything. Got no money. Just debt. Comes back to a man who's got to know how to fight. It's how you fight is all that counts at the Donny Brooke. Pot still 100,000?
Yes, sir. If I win, then it's more money we ever dreamed of and we're free. Take a last look. I'm gonna buy us a house somewhere else. And give us a new start.
What if you lose?
Can't lose.
Angus is a devil, man.
What are you gonna do with that?
What do you think?
I think the whole world's gone to hell.
I saw you at the bar. I know you're going to the Donny Brook. Thought we could pair up.
You're as strong as they come, Mom. Say it.
I'm strong as they come.
Yes, you are.
Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the
Donny Brook. You guys can watch that film on video on demand in Amazon. I think you can purchase it for a few bucks. It's there, and it's definitely worth watching. Tim, tell us more about it.
Sure.
How did you come in a position to make a film with Jamie Bell on that production level? I mean, what was the budget of that film, by the way?
It was $5 million. So all of my films up to then had, as a combined budget, had been less than $1 million altogether. So it was an opportunity to work on a bigger canvas with a bigger producer. The producer David Lancaster had done Drive,
yeah,
which I really love, and Nightcrawler, which I really love. So it's like a chance to explore these kind of dark themes in American culture through an anti-hero of sorts, and I found that really interesting. It was it was an agent, it was a manager, it was an adaptation of a novel. It was an all new thing for me, and what I decided was, it was an opportunity to learn how to work on a bigger budget with big crews and with unions and all of that stuff. And instead of banging my head against the wall, trying to be just an artist, what I decided to do was leave Gus Van Sant over here, and leave Godard over here, and think about what the Coen brothers would have done, and what John Ford would have done, and these are guys who worked big American themes, and I decided to try a new model, and in a way it was really interesting. I got to work with really good actors for the first time, which was exciting, and I got to work in genre and proved that I could work in genre while also trying to tell a movie. It's not a fight movie. I mean, they marketed it as a fight movie, but it's a movie about survival, and a movie about a very specific time in America. With the rise of Trump and the anger of the white rural class. And I thought it was an interesting opportunity to tell a story that wasn't like anything I had done before, but tell it from an artful eye, and at the same time try and find a bigger audience and make myself applicable as a director who could get bigger films if he wanted. I was disappointed with how they. I think I did a good job with the movie. I mean, I think I had to lean into the idea of giving more information to the audience than I typically would like to.
Yes.
But so there is a compromise with that. But I thought the distribution company, all along, even though they told me differently, they were just going to market it as a fight movie, and put it on DVD in Walmart and in the discount rack and stuff like that.
Which distributor was it in the US?
IFC.
IFC.
Yeah. And they do some good films and some, not so good films. But I think, sadly, the film never really got a chance. I do I do think there is a kind of cult following because I hear about it time to time, but it did make me think like, okay, that's what happens when you have a bigger canvas. You lose a little bit of control.
Yeah.
Like that trailer, I would have cut a completely different trailer. You know, and like the poster, I would have made a completely different poster. There are certain things you give up, and it's, you know, it can be beneficial, or it can come back and kind of make you wonder like, all right, what's your next film going to be? You know?
Yeah, but it's I think it's an important experience, even though it doesn't sound like it's one of the most favorite ones maybe.
Right.
But I think it will give you more confidence in the future to continue, because you already continued. You made a new film that premiered in Berlin called Funny Face.
Right.
Tell us more about it. We have a clip here.
Oh, you have a clip? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think Funny Face is an interesting kind of combination of the first three films and Donnybrook. There is definitely more, like Donnybrook, it is more plot-based than the other films. It is more story-based, and it does have actors in it. Cosmo Jarvis, a young British actor who's fantastic. I think he's like the next Tom Hardy. And at the same time, I wanted to make a New York movie. Like I feel I've lived in New York for over 25 years.
Yeah.
Never made a New York movie because either I wasn't ready or it's so difficult or I didn't have a story. And I felt like 5 films in, I was ready to make that New York movie. And the reason that I felt ready to is because New York is changing so drastically, and the high rises are coming up, and it's kind of a playground for the rich. Right. Rather than this kind of cool, weird ecosystem of people from all over the world. I felt like we were losing touch with what the city, you know, what really was supposed to be and what it means to me. So I made a movie that felt like, you know, a kind of, if Donnybrook was a Bruce Springsteen song, then Funny Face is a Ramones song. It's kind of like a punk rock ode to a changing city.
Thanks a lot. I will now give you guys the clip of Funny Face, and then you can maybe give some more explanation.
Sure. Yeah, the clip is, I think, I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, it's just a scene when they go to the shop. But whatever,
it's the love story.
It's the love story. Yeah, let's continue with that.
Get a slice?
Somebody will use them.
Good. Can you do a 360?
What?
Like a full spin.
Yeah, probably.
You're not gonna show me? Come on. Almost. It was really good, though.
Your turn.
I can't do it.
What?
No, I can't do it.
Hey!
So the clip is over. And tell us more about that film. It looks it looks so different from Donnybrook, and it looks again like you're trying to find something new, something interesting, you know,
Well, I think that's the most important thing is like, I feel like the first 3 movies I was honing a certain part of the craft. Right. And then with Donnybrook and with Funny Face, I'm still in the process. Like I'm still finding what the next step of the voice is. And with Funny Face, it's what I tried to do was tell a story that had to do with kind of a relevant political issue, but that was a love letter to the city, but at the same time was a love story between, you know, two very different people, because that's what my New York is. My New York is is not. I might live in a nice block with nice trees and kind of middle class, but what I always love about New York is that you're driving down one street and there's African and Asian and Jewish and Arab and there's just this great mixture. It's this whole microcosm of the world, and I find exploring that through the lives of the relationship of these two people as something that hadn't really been told before. And so I what I did this time was try and make something that felt a little Repo Man, a little Jarmusch, and try and make a New York movie, like a movie that you could say, if you're listing, the top 30 movies of New York or 50 movies in New York, I'm not saying it's going to be up there with Taxi Driver, but it's in that genre, and I feel like that was really my goal, was to be true to my New York and the New York of the cinema.
Sadly, that film now is somehow in limbo. It's so in between. It cannot come out. No one knows how it comes out, and what is about release with that film. What's the matter with it now?
Well, it's the coronavirus has definitely created a roadblock for it. It's not. It played very well at Berlin. It played in the New Encounters competition section, right, which was for more art-based films, discovery-based films, which I was excited about, and it played very well. It's not, people were a little wondering, well, is it a love story? Is it a revenge story? And I'm like, well, it's all those things, so it didn't sell right off the bat, but then coronavirus happened and, deals we had that were on the table went away. And at the same time, like the movies that are getting put on Netflix that aren't being made by Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, if they're just being bought by them, they have to fill a certain bucket. They have to be a thriller, or they have to be a romantic comedy, or they have to be a broad comedy. They have to be labeled. Right. And I do my best to try and make films that have no easy label. So it's a weird time, and with festivals, going online and or canceling, like it was going to play at Carlo Vivari, it was maybe going to play San Sebastian, there are places that it could be playing that, of course, right now a film like that really needs,
right,
don't really exist. So I hope it's not going to be my lost film. I think it will find a place and will find a distributor, and has a very good European international sales agent who does believe in the film. But it's a hard time. I don't know, other than giant Hollywood productions, I don't know what's selling, what's getting out there.
Yeah. You always refuse to fit in a certain label, and you don't give straight answers in all of your films, because you're honest, because we all don't know. We don't have these answers,
Right.
And that's what makes it so exciting. That should be in the focus of art house cinema. For me as a cinema owner, it means we always have to compromise. We have different sneak previews, and we screen a lot of original movies in original language with German subtitles, but we also have to show them in dubbed version because we are forced to, somehow. And sometimes we also say, no, this film we only, let's say the Tarantino movie, the recent one, we only showed it in English version. We didn't show the German dubbed version. So
right.
Even it was very successful, but we try to find new audiences, to educate in quotation marks, let's say.
Right.
And I think that's what you try to do as well. You try to sharpen the eye of the spectator. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the programmers and theater owners and the curators and the filmmakers that I like, the word challenge is still a meaningful word. To challenge someone, to challenge yourself, or to challenge the viewer with a certain kind of aesthetic. And hopefully there will be a wave of filmmakers who believe like this matters, and audience members who want that kind of experience, rather than just like oh, this is easy, I'll watch this. But to learn something new, to like come out of a viewing experience to have been moved or transformed, doesn't come when it's the same old thing,
Right.
when it's the same genre, when it's recognizable. It comes when it's truly discovery.
Yeah. To me, art is about, to get you out of your bubble, to get you out of your comfort zone, for a certain period of time. And it was very interesting. Last year we went to Italy, and we for a vacation, and we met a couple from California, and she was very proud, that she had just she told me that she's very proud that she had just bought a new weapon, and that she loves her bubble. She literally said that, she said, I love my bubble. And her husband sitting next to her, he said, yeah, she loves her bubble. He always repeated her sentence just in the third person, saying that, yeah. And then, I said, yeah, we love cinema, and yeah, what kind of movies are you watching? And then I showed them the trailer of Pavilion and Dark Knight and stuff, because I said, I know as a guy. And so I think that was also the connection now through all the Corona stuff that somehow you popped up in my mind again,
right.
That this connection. And when they saw that, she saw the trailer of Dark Knight. She said, I would never go see like anything like that. Yeah. And I would say, yeah, but it can be interesting, because afterwards you can go back to your bubble, you can feel safe, that's okay for everyone, but then you had an experience that is really interesting for just 85 minutes.
Right.
And she said, no, it's not my type of film. And he said, yeah, they are the New York liberals, social liberals. And then it was Brandmark, and then that brought all the tragedy to me, when it came to America and the current situation with Trump and all that agenda, and it's really difficult. But I hope we all can find our ways to make art, to give enough light to the arts we're doing,
Yeah. I mean, it's all too recognizable and ignorant. You know what I mean? Because the idea of cinema or even streaming something and watching something new, watching something that makes you feel uncomfortable. I mean, to me, that's the most exciting thing.
Right.
And granted, I'm not everybody's taste, but it is the industry right now is leaning closer towards that couple in a major way. They want to fulfill that kind of couple's needs online. Right. And I'm hoping that the new wave will happen, or dogma will happen, or mumblecore will happen. Like, what will be our response to that? Because I want to be a part of that. And I think it's an important thing that when things get kind of tamped down, or when things get a stranglehold on them, there is a movement that creates something new. Right. And I think the cinema needs a new step in that direction.
Right. I totally agree. I think you said that pretty well. When I look to the US and to the world in general in these days, then I feel like I cannot believe sometimes what's going on in some people's minds. In Germany now, there are a lot of people that follow up on conspiracy theories, like Bill Gates invented coronavirus, he brought it up here. There's really absurd, crazy shit going on. And then I look to the US, and then we see that douchebag, that Trumpish guy, and that Trump guy. And how do you stay sane? How do you protect your mind, your world, to stay sane?
I mean, it's incredibly difficult. I think one of the things that we're not alone in this, in terms of like this madness and recognizing this madness. Our friends and community and people across the country and people across the world do have this understanding of this madness, and so it is this collective madness at the worst case scenario. It's very difficult. One of the ways I tried to understand it was by making cinema, was by making Donny Brooke as to try and speak about the rural white rage, and for Funny Face was to try and speak about why money isn't the answer. Why money is destroying New York rather than building it. And so creating is a big part of my survival, and I think that's why I hope there's still an audience for the kind of things that I want to do. So, you know, I in the middle of this, right before we started this, we were talking about I just started writing something, and it's exceedingly dark, and I know that dark is not there. There's not a bigger audience, and Netflix doesn't want dark unless it's a crime genre and this and that. And I decided it's like, now these are dark times. So my job as an artist is not to escape, and is not to help people into escape. It's to help them kind of process it in my own way. And so instead of worrying about the marketplace, instead of worrying about, you know, what the streamers want, or what actor is worth what or not, I'm writing out my quarantine. I'm writing out what that quarantine looks like in a dream state in cinema, rather than just me sitting here. And I got to tell you, I mean, it's like taking weight off my shoulders. I don't know what will ever happen. I think I can make it eventually.
Yeah.
But it makes me feel like, oh, that's how I survive. I write and direct. I make films, and I'm lucky that I have that outlet.
Right. Absolutely. It's a gift, and I think you carry it very well. And so is there anything new coming up? I mean, on IMDb there's something listed. You know, I found a film, and can you tell more about it? What will be your next project?
Well, the chain is on IMDb, and it's written, and there is a producer. It's the same producer as Donny Brooke, and it's with Jamie Bell.
Wow.
And it's has a financer in line. It's just now a matter of when do you start? How do you start? What's the process? Because making films of a certain level now is going to be a very different process. Right. I could go out in maybe September with a band of 10 people and non-actors and make something, which might be this thing that I'm writing now. But the chain is something that needs to be done with actors, so the unions and the insurance companies and who you know, how many medics will be on set, and how people will work. All of that needs to be sorted out. But it is an interesting movie. I think it's an adaptation of a Tobias Wolff short story, and it's about people making decisions that they think are the right decision. Until they realize that they've made huge mistakes. So in a way, it's a family drama, but again, it's about how people interact with their landscape, just like the rest of my movies. So hopefully it'll get made. I mean, it's certainly, I'm proud of the script. I think it's good. It's just in these times, it's like maybe a movie of that size has to wait, and maybe a smaller movie has to come first. So
yes, I think on your festival circuit, it's just one festival is missing. It's Cannes. Yeah, everybody wants to be in Cannes. I'm sure you will be one of the guys that one day will be in Cannes, and if not, I also wouldn't care, because I think it's very politic. You know, you need the right sales agent, and then the right format, the right subject, and it just has. You need a lot of luck to go there. It doesn't mean anything if you don't run in Cannes. I mean, you know, when we had our distribution company, we were releasing Good Time by the Safdie brothers.
I like that movie.
And it was not that easy to get that film, because it had a very high price, and we couldn't afford it. We said, no, if we do that, we will be broke afterwards. We will have a Safdie brothers movie, but no one will thank us for that, you know. And then, but on a certain point, we found a deal that made sense, and that was all right, and it made nearly about 40,000 admissions. It was really okay. It was cool. You know, for us, it was very cool. It was a smaller company but with a very good structure, and and I once met them, and they said, and I asked them, I said, you're very lucky. You have guys like A24, you know, doing your stuff. You can do whatever the fuck you want. And they said, you know, I don't know who was it, George or Ben, and he said, you know, I mean, we are lucky, but that's all. You know, each film is difficult to make, and we don't know if it's going to be a good film. And of course, they have the privilege that they land at A24.
Right.
And but on the other hand, I'm very sure that one day in 1 May of which year ever we will meet in Cannes, and you will run in a section. And I at least would hope that for you, because I think you deserve it already according to the films that you have done. And I think one day someone will acknowledge that, you know.
Well, I appreciate that. I hope so too.
Yeah. So thank you so much for having this conversation. And for you guys, you can definitely check out all the films: Pavilion, Memphis, Dark Knight, Donny Brooke, and at one point Funny Face as well. You find them in the links that we will post into this recording session. And you will find the video later on Facebook and of course on our YouTube channel. Tim, thank you so much for being there. Maybe you can still hold up in the line and we can have a final chat.
Sure.
Off the record. Thanks so much for being here, and be well, be safe, and say hello to your family.
Okay, thanks so much.
Take care.
Bye.